Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox. That's Ben Olson. We're the founders of LSATdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. We have an email here from Marshall M.
A few episodes ago, Nathan commented on not letting a distinction without a difference get in the way of accepting a good answer that maybe isn't perfect. Sometimes it seems like I waste time figuring out if the distinction between two similar words or the distinction between two different connotations of the same word matter, even when I make an accurate prediction that's there in the answer choices. Okay, so you're getting stuck between synonyms and you're getting stuck between, I don't know, different definitions of the same word. But there are also scenarios where those distinctions do actually matter a lot in determining why a specific answer is wrong. I'm trying to learn how to, in the moment, recognize when these distinctions do matter or are just wasting my time. Any advice for building this skill?
It sounds like Marshall doesn't recognize that there's two ways of arriving at the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to understand, Marshall, that there is one credited answer and 4 wrong answers.
Yeah.
So I go in, and this, probably changing your approach a little bit would be better. I go in very comfortable with the idea that I might, on a first read through, eliminate all 5 answers.
Mm-hmm.
These types of distinctions, I'm looking for differences. I'm looking for reasons why answers are wrong.
Yeah.
So on a first read through, I might be like, nah, it can't be any of these. Okay, well, but it has to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
On a second read through, I'm then gonna conclusively eliminate the ones that have real differences.
Yeah.
And then that might save me from, at first I thought, oh, you were talking about egocentrism, and now this answer choice is talking about solipsism.
Mm.
That's a word of the week that we just had on Thinking LSAT. Well, as we just learned, egocentrism and solipsism can be definitions of each other. So even though there was a technical difference there, maybe that is a difference without a distinction, or a distinction without a difference, rather.
Mm-hmm.
And because one of the answers has to be right, I would then be willing to let that go, knowing that the other 4 answers are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Marshall, I get it that sometimes that will eliminate an answer and other times it won't.
Mm-hmm.
But what else are you going to pick? Right? Because I guarantee that on one of these where you're like, well, there's a difference there, and I feel like that difference should make it wrong. Yeah, but what else did you pick? Because that other answer, I guarantee, is worse. And this answer, if you interpret it in the way that those 2 words are synonyms of one another, then it's 100% right.
Yeah. Well,
What else do you want to say, Marshall?
I would say exactly the same thing, maybe in just slightly different words, and that is that in both cases, you're making an assumption. In the one case, you're assuming that those 2 words are synonymous enough to close the gap. Okay, what's the assumption that you're making in the answer choice that you're now going to fall back on? And it's always just astronomically worse. You're just missing it. You're not paying attention to the I don't know, the assumption you're making to make it work.
Yeah. And I do want to say, stop worrying about time, Marshall. Marshall's saying, how do I do this in the moment? How do I recognize when these distinctions actually matter, or when they are just wasting my time?
Yeah.
Well, there is no such thing as wasting your time. This is lawyer shit. You have to solve this question. You have to narrow this question down to one correct answer. You have to understand how this record, this question on this record, this answer actually answers that question based on the record, and the other 4 don't.
Yeah.
And that's not a thing where it's just not going to be useful to be thinking about time as you're doing that.
Yeah.
So I think trying to go fast is a big part of your problem here. What students would mostly do is they would be like, oh, well, I'm going to leave that one open. Like, I do see a difference there, but I'm going to leave it open.
Yeah.
And then they get done with the answers and they realize that they've left 3 answers open. Well, I would much rather you eliminate all five on a first pass through. You should be looking for reasons why they're wrong, not looking for reasons to leave them open.
Yeah. Well, and
And
even if,
sometimes I think
yeah,
students think it's a waste of time to do that. Oh, well, no, I can't. What if I eliminate all five?
I have to go back through all five.
I've
Yeah.
wasted time. No, you've wasted time by letting multiple answers live on your
Mhm.
first read through.
Yeah. I think it's also critical to remember that if you do leave an answer open, you're like, oh, well, I could see how that might be synonymous. So I'm going to leave it open. I could see how this might work. Well, if you get to another answer that you like, you have to stop. You
Yeah,
have to you have two contenders. You can only have one contender or no contenders when it
right,
comes to answer choices. You can't have three. So if you
right.
have two, you now have to decide between them. And that's where
Yeah,
you'll start to see, okay, maybe these distinctions are subtle here, but they're actually very significant in one of
yeah,
these answers.
yeah. I mean, you should be expecting two things, though, right? You should be expecting that synonyms exist.
Hmm.
Like they're, they're very frequently going to use different words in the correct answer than they used in the passage
Yes.
because synonyms are a thing. But you also, at the same time, should expect that they are going to try to get you to make errors in reasoning. And, they're going to say, on the one hand, they're going to say most of the time, and then one of the answers is going to say all of the time.
Hmm.
Well, now those aren't synonyms.
Yeah.
That's different. That's different ideas now. Those have different meaning. And so there's like, it's kind of, you're doing both at the same time. As you're evaluating an answer choice, you're really not looking for reasons that it's right. You're looking for reasons that it's different and therefore wrong.
Hmm.
But you do have to be open to the possibility that they can use, I don't know, player in one instance and then athlete in another instance. And it's like, well, but we're talking about sports ball people, player, athlete, that they're using those interchangeably. That's fine in this
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Anything more for Marshall?
No.
Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you would like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.